Blade Trinity is the third film in the Blade franchise. It is also the last to star Wesley Snipes, and it is written and directed this time by David S. Goyer. He wrote the screenplay for the first two, and yeah, he's given the keys to the kingdom on this one. He's put in the director's chair. So yeah, I've said this before, David S. Goyer, he's quite a good writer, I think. If you can get a good director, a very good director, to take what he's written and then polish it and make it, you end up with a pretty good product. When Goyer gets to direct his own scripts, they don't tend to fare so well. This film's a bit of a mess, to be honest. The first half of it is actually quite solid. It sets up an intriguing enough story and characters. I think bringing Dracula into the fray is really good idea. It's the only real step you can go to after, you know, the previous two movies, in which we got Deacon Frost and then we got like the next level up. After that, you pretty much do have to go with the big guy himself. Unfortunately, he's played here by Dominic Purcell, who has, yeah, all the charisma of a postage stamp. When we first meet Dracula, and a couple of other times in the film, we get to see like his true form kind of thing, and he looks like this big red devil man. I think Purcell fares better under the makeup than he does when he's not in the makeup, because yeah, the makeup and the effects kind of do the work for him in that sense. He's not helped at all by his wardrobe. He looks like he's just stepped off the catwalk of some, yeah. It just, I don't get the whole low cut V-neck tops showing the pecs. It just, it doesn't work. It really doesn't. He looks like he's stepped out of the wrong decade. So as I say, the film revolves around this group of vampires, small group of vampires who decide to resurrect Dracula in the hopes that his blood, being that he was the first of his kind and therefore has pure blood, so to speak, his blood will be the key to unlocking the same powers that both he and Blade have, which is, you know, as daywalkers, to be able to go out in the day. That's kind of it. That's the be all and end all of it. Blade kind of has to team up with Whistler's daughter and her band of, yeah, her motley crew, so to speak, including Hannibal Caine, played by Ryan Reynolds. These are comic book characters. Well, King, sorry, not Caine. Hannibal King is a character from the comic books. I don't know about Whistler's daughter, but yeah, it's safe to say that this is their movie and not Blade's. Blade kind of gets ousted from his own franchise in this film. When you look at the screen time through each film that Blade is given, it decreases with each film. And I understood that for the second one. They put a lot of characters in there, but they were kind of integral to everything that was going on around Blade. Whereas here, this really does feel like an advertisement in a sense for a spin-off featuring these guys, and it's almost like Blade kind of takes a back seat, which is somewhat disrespectful, I think, to the character as well as to Wesley Snipes. The thing is, if you're going to do that, if you are going to, you know, introduce these characters and make it more about them, then you have to make us care about them. You have to make these characters be people that we want to see, that we want to follow, that we want to root for. And unfortunately, they're just not. There's not really a right lot to them, you know. Jessica Biel gets to play the sexy vampire hunter card. Great. Ryan Reynolds is annoying in this. I mean, it's essentially his dry run for a Deadpool in a way, you know, the smart mouth kind of vigilante. But for some reason, the charisma and the joy, the fun that he brings to the role of Deadpool just ain't here. And I don't know if it's just because of the bad dialogue or what, or the beard. I don't know. He annoys me in this film. Most of his lines of dialogue just aren't funny. I don't know if they were ad-libbed or whether it's what Goyer scripted, but they're just not funny. So many times it feels like Reynolds' character, Reynolds himself even, is almost asking us, the audience, it's almost like he's winking at us to laugh along with, that was funny, right? No, it wasn't. And they're just, not a good performance from him, not a good character, just certainly not funny in the way that I think they're really trying desperately to go for. Kristofferson is probably the best thing about this film, but yeah, he exits stage left. So, you know, as I said in my reviews for the others, they killed him, they brought him back, they kill him again in this. By the time we get to this death scene, it really has no impact. It's just like, oh right, and he's killed off so early in the movie as well that it's like, I don't know, you kind of half expect him to pop up in the final reel, like he didn't really die. And he comes and he saves the day, whatever, but he doesn't, and it's just, you don't even notice. You don't get to the end and think, oh no, he didn't pop up, he really was dead. Or you don't, you know, when he does die, you don't think, oh no, Whistler. No, it's just like, right, okay. So they got rid of the character that we know and love, dare I say, to bring in, characters that we don't really care that much about. Parker Posey in this, it's a bit of a strange one. Parker Posey, I liked her in Scream 3. I liked her in Superman Returns. She has a strange kind of way about her. She's quite comedic. But I feel like she's struggling with the teeth in this. To be honest, I feel like most of the people in this who are vampires are struggling with the teeth. I don't know if they're just not made as well as the previous films, but they're taught like that. Like they're kind of... There does seem to be a lot more action in this one. I think with each film they kind of up the action kind of stakes. I don't think this is filmed anywhere near, I mean, clearly again that's down to Goyer as a director. He doesn't have the skill of someone like Guillermo del Toro, and it shows. Some of the action sequences are a bit bland. Some of them work quite nicely. I am still entertained by the action sequences. You know, whenever stuff's kicking off, I'm like, okay, this is all right. This is entertaining me. I just feel like the story that takes place around the action sequences and the characters that are involved just aren't as entertaining to me or engaging to me as the two previous films. The final showdown between Blade and Dracula is really anticlimactic. Again, I think that comes down to the way it's directed. It's not a brilliant fight scene, to be honest. When you look at the fight we got between Deacon Frost and Blade and Nomak and Blade, they were a lot more entertaining to me. Still not the height of action cinema, you know, and a lot of fast-paced editing and this, that and the other, but they were at least entertaining, whereas this, the ending kind of feels a bit flat. It feels, as I say, anticlimactic. You know, you want the big final fight, the boss fight, so to speak, between Blade and the main villain, and it's just a bit like, it happens, it finishes, and that's that. There are a few nice ideas in it with regards to the mythology of you know, of the world that Blade lives in and the vampires and this, that, and the other. Like I like all the stuff about the human blood banks. You know, when they go to, Blade goes to this warehouse, basically this storage unit, and it's filled with bodies which are basically kept alive but in a dormant state, in comas basically, just so that the blood can be fed from them, and it's a great solution to, you know, the problem vampires face. You know, they can't wipe out humanity because they kind of need their blood, but actually they don't have to occupy the same space with them. They don't have to breathe the same air as them in effect, because they don't have to keep them walking around and doing their thing. They could just take as many as they need, and yeah, pretty much like the Matrix with the machines kind of using humans as batteries. They can just store them and drain them as and when they please. So yeah, that makes sense to me. It's a good setup. I like the way that is shown to us. It's quite sickening in a way, and I get Blade's reaction to that. I like Blade's reaction to that, and I like how they shut that whole thing down and put these people out of their misery. Yeah, that's a good moment, I think. I like that Goyer does have the balls, I guess, to commit to killing the blind woman in it. You know, like it's a character that I would imagine in another film they might play it safe and say, oh, you can't kill her, she's blind. They'd find a way, you know, for her inner strength to win out. But no, she's up against Dracula. She gets killed, and she's found in quite a brutal way. You know, when they find her and she's strung up, it's like, actually, that's quite brutal. Unfortunately, it's just, as I say, Purcell being Dracula kind of takes away some of the element of horror in that, because I just don't buy into him as the all-powerful baddest of the bad, you know, when it comes to vampire mythology. There's the potential for some interesting ideas in here. There's some interesting ideas that I just feel like, yeah, that they're not kind of taken to their full potential. Like when Dracula goes into this goth shop and he sees all this Dracula merchandise. I think there is something there worth exploring with the idea of, you know, young people's obsession with death, or obsession with things that are related to death and things like that, and not really, yeah, it's one thing to kind of glorify certain aspects of death, but then to actually go through it. I think, yeah, there's something that could be made of that, but here it just feels like a tacky, it just feels tacky. There's no other way to say it. It doesn't really fit in with anything else that's going on. It's meant to show us that Dracula is a man out of time, and it's just, again, better writing and better acting might have done something with it. So ultimately, Blade Trinity is something of a disappointment, a considerable disappointment after the first two films. You know, admittedly, those first two, they're not the benchmark of comic book superhero cinema, but there's something about them that is very appealing. And the second one built on the first one. The third one doesn't build on the second one. It kind of crashes and burns. There are entertaining moments in it. When I watch the first two, I do tend to watch this one afterwards, so it's not like an unwatchable mess. There are elements in it that I can have fun with, some of the action sequences, some of the ideas, as I say. But overall, it is a highly disappointing entry into the series, and definitely a disappointing conclusion to the series. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. But yeah, what about you? Did you find Blade Trinity to be underrated? Are you one of those crazy people out there that actually really likes this film? I know there are some. Leave your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on this movie. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.